Welcome, everyone. Our event this afternoon is sponsored by Valere and also 3311 and Orca Security and the folks at WorkVar, this beautiful space that we're in here. Our topic is becoming AI first in 2026. And we'll lead our panelists in a moment, but as I was preparing I'll be moderating the panel, by the way. My name is Tyler, and I work as the Chief Learning Officer at Valere. So I was preparing for the questions that I want to ask these panelists, and I started digging into the latest research, a lot of the media articles, basically anybody who's mentioning that term AI first, to try to wrap my head around what does it mean. And what I learned as I was going through all of those sources is we have no idea. No, I'm just kidding. What I've learned is that AI first is still kind of an emerging definition. And so I grabbed a few things that just stood out, and I was curious. I wanted to just kind of frame our conversations because it seems like everybody has sort of a different take on it. So we have a group of people who just sort of simplify it as it's this company-wide model where AI is built into your everyday operations. Would we agree with that? Okay. But then you also have a group of people who say that AI first means that AI should act first. So it should be the first line of defense in a workflow where AI does the work. Maybe it responds to the customer or it writes the first draft, and then the human steps in later if something needs to be escalated. Okay? You have another group of people who see it more on the product and services side. So as a design feature, meaning that AI first means that we're not just using some old product and slapping a feature on top, but we're building it from scratch based on what AI makes possible. And then you have a group of people who are just rejecting that term, or at least saying, is that even the right term? Because if we say AI first, then who's second, right? Are we making AI the main character or the protagonist? And if that's the case, then what are the humans left to do? I was thinking about, we all probably have seen the new Michael Jackson movie, right? So you think about some of the iconic humans in the world, that would be like saying that the soundboard is more important than Michael Jackson and his dancing and his music, right? So it's a really interesting conversation. I think it's an emerging definition. And so we brought in these panelists tonight where we are going to hear where they agree, where they disagree, and how they all define AI first. Okay? So with that, I'd like for each of you to introduce yourself. You've got about 60 seconds. Name, who you are, and a little bit about your company. Just a little bit, 60 seconds.
Okay. My name is Guy Stoney. I am the CEO of Valere. Valere is a AI value creation agency, about 225 employees. We work in both digital transformation and also market-facing applications.
My name is Alex, president of Valere. So very much see the day-to-day, the operations in terms of how we're getting there. I'll just tack on a little bit to what Guy mentioned here. I'm really looking through two lenses he mentioned, really in the bucket of, I know what I need, I see a team to come in and execute on it, very foundational, digital solution, but really navigating the space around AI transformation, which is very much that second bucket of, I know I need AI ML, I don't know where the hell to start. And so that's where we're going to bring our perspective here, particularly around the three lenses that we traditionally bring, which is around learning, building, and scaling.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Nislick. I'm the CMO at Orca Security. We are responsible for securing everything from applications in your environment all the way through to cloud security, runtime protection. So today, I'm interested in just hearing how people are leveraging AI and thinking about kind of this duality of securing your infrastructure and also securing AI agents. And I'm thrilled to be here.
Hey folks, Mark Frumkin here, Vice President of Customer Success at Modulate. Modulate is a frontier AI lab that specializes in voice. We've been around for 7 to 8 years now, pivoted a few turns as all startups do. Most recently, started to unpackage access to our models. Now we're shipping those models and giving developers, entrepreneurs, and enterprise companies access to some of the best machine learning models in the world via APIs.
Yes, and last, my name is Matt Stevenson. I work for 3311 Exec Search. So I work with private equity and venture capital firms on leadership hiring. Main domain focus areas are product technology, data, and go-to-market. But we kind of work cross-functionally. And this is a topic of conversation for every single one of our clients, regardless of which function we're hiring against. So just looking forward to sharing what we're seeing from our perspective and hearing from the rest of the panel and you guys what you were saying.
So they all cut it to 60 seconds. How about that? So we're going to have 3 rounds. The first round, we're going to look at perspectives on AI. I've got some questions that I will pose to the panel. And then the second round, we have some pre-submitted questions. Those of you, when you registered, you were able to submit a question. So I'll ask a few of those. Then we'll open it up to the floor. So be thinking about what questions you would like to ask. Okay. All right. So we'll start with Guy, the first question here. So again, we're thinking about how, AI first, it means something different to everybody. And I also think that we all kind of own our own little slice of the work. You and I obviously work at the same company, but I'm curious about the building part. So when you are building systems for AI, what is something that you think the market is really struggling with right now when it comes to building stuff?
So a lot of clients will come to us and they have very high ambitions, especially in the context of digital transformation. And the ambition is like almost complete automation. And the idea of complete automation is possible, but that is something you have to work up to. Most of the time, what you should focus on is operational efficiency. What I mean by operational efficiency is you're developing a workflow, and then within this workflow, you're thinking very strategically about where you're inserting that even in the loop. And it can be in a variety of steps within that workflow. It can be at the end to just review the results. By doing that, and by doing that effectively and efficiently, what you're doing is you're allowing the human judgment to be in capturing that data over and over again. So you're understanding how would a human react at these particular points in this workflow. And then over time, you can start removing UX UI. And by removing UX UI and allowing the agents to take over those judgment pieces, you're going to capture more of this operational efficiency, getting closer to this fully autonomous, workflow, whether that is a linear workflow or whether that's just a non-linear workflow where agents are working together and have agency towards a common goal.
So when you're building those agents for an organization, the agents obviously have to understand more than just the design of the system, right? Like the agent, there's so many things about your business as the agents have to know. Do you find that that's a problem? Is like, how do you collect all of that information when every business is so nuanced?
Yeah. So we look at it like most back office operations, there's a lot of off the shelf that would work, right? When you look at kind of front of house, like what makes that business different from every other business, that's where this proprietary information, that's where like there's a lot of information within people's heads and how they operate, where if you can surface that and you can bring that to these agents, you'll get more of that fully autonomous automation.
So then, could you talk about, again, thinking about these little slices of the work, when you're thinking about the agents, what is one area where you think as CEO of Valere has found kind of like a secret sauce? And if you would just share, why do you think it's working so well currently?
Referring to Dactic? Yeah. So look, there's 2 pieces of this that I think are really important to understand. Firstly, if you think about especially these legacy businesses where process just has to be built on top of each other year after year, sometimes over decades, no one necessarily thinks about how these things fit together. No one's there thinking about operational efficiency in the context of how agents work and how AI works. So you have all of these complex processes. Agents coming into this are reading from an LLM. They're not necessarily reading from your proprietary data. Okay? So that's first of all, that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is they don't have necessarily a system that is designed specifically for agents. So we built essentially a product called Dactic that first and foremost sits on like a lot of your different systems, looks at your digital footprints and tries to understand like, how does this business work? What is the map? Right? From there, it defines processes. And then from there, we'll define like, this is the state of if you connect these agents, how it will work very efficiently. But it doesn't just end there. It also is able to connect back to the proprietary information. So as it's running those workflows, it knows where in this readable documentation to be able to find the data to be able to support these processes fully autonomously. So you want to think about it as most people here are familiar with a business plan. A business plan is what people use to align to business objectives. Agents don't have that business plan. So that readable library of knowledge and documentation is what agents can refer to be able to understand the rules of the business. What happens at this juncture, okay? And they're able to pull that. So that's a tool that we have worked on, because what we have found is we're spending our times manually unpacking these systems with hours and hours and hours of interviews. We're then designing these systems, and when we deploy them to production, we're realizing, okay, we missed this key point, and then we have to go back and find that information. Rather than, let's design the full system, let's understand the full system, let's understand where all the information is, let's take our time preparing before then deploying these agents.
All right. So we'll go to Alex next. So my question for you, Alex, is you're leading an AI first company as president. One of the things I know about you is you are leading this work relatively early in your career. Relatively early. He's a young guy, right? And so what I was curious about is, I know that you work with a lot of people from all generations, let's say, maybe people who have run technology companies 20, 30, even 40 years. What would you say from where you sit is maybe the thing that people need to unlearn, maybe like an old mindset that doesn't work anymore 2026?
Yeah, I think it's particularly relevant to this year. We've seen it over the last couple really reshaping the conversation, but I think there's this existing paradigm way of thinking where I have a problem, at least in tech, I'm going to go buy a tool. I'm going to go buy a solution and it should fix my problem. But guess what? It's kind of like in the kitchen. I just bought a stove. I still need to know how to cook. I still need to know how to use it. And so there's a reshaping conversation that I think, and I try to remember who, it's probably Sequoia. I think that brought it up, really brought it to the full, made it a bit more viral over the last 3 months, where it's this paradigm shift in thinking about the tool and turning it on its head. Can you instead skip the middleman, skip that step where now we still have to make sure that there's adoption, retention, people know how to use this tool effectively, and you can just go right to the outcome. Can I just hire a chef that's going to cook the meal for me? To go back to the kitchen analogy. So I think that's a paradigm shift that we're starting to see, where you look at the old guard, and I saw it from years at my prior company, Booz Allen, where it's we're buying seats, we're buying tools, and now we got to bring in 3 or 4 other consulting agencies just to implement it, to teach our people how to use it. And now we're in the whole 2-3x what we originally started with to have this solution. It was supposed to be out of the box.
I read something just the other day about that, where it was talking about that old SaaS models. And if you just kind of look at the receipt, most leaders think, okay, I just need to buy these licenses for this software. But then not only do you have the cost of the license, but then it's okay, who's going to, first of all, I have to pay the salary of the people who are going to push the buttons in my organization. I've got to pay the trainers to train them, all the IT support, all the upgrades it takes. So the cost, the number I saw was for every $1 you spend on software, it's $1.50 on all the extra stuff. So I like that now too about the story. Okay, let's see. So could you give an example then of, so if you took the old SaaS model of software heavy, flipped it, maybe give an example. I know you used the stove analogy, but what is an example of a use case of that in practice? How are you thinking about that? That's Valere.
I think about it in terms of how we position AI transformation. So rather than an instance this guy brought up, selling a tool like Dactic, where you still have to roll it out, you still have to implement it, you're still hoping to achieve an outcome or a solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. We look at it more holistically from the perspective as I mentioned, learn, build, scale. You should be bringing the outcome. You should be bringing the full service. And at the end of the day, this should just be done, right? So it's no different than if I were to, again, buy a tool, buy a hammer, right? I should just go buy a contractor. If I can outsource the work entirely to achieve that outcome, that's the way that we start to think about it and how we've reshaped and also consider AI transformation, right? That is a process, that's an action, that's a function that you want to reposition rather than solving that with a tool rather than software as a service. You go to, I'm sure it's a buzzword at this point, services, softwares. You want to flip it on its head, where you're buying that outcome and going directly to that outcome to see ROI, rather than buying the tool to hopefully see ROI once your people have learned to adopt it.
All right, moving on to Rachel. So what this will say about you is you have that marketing hat. I'm not sure which hat you're going to put on, whether it's marketing or security, but either one is good. But I just wanted to know, what is something that to you might feel kind of obvious from where you sit, but as you look around, it's a lot harder whenever people kind of get into the thick of it.
Yeah. So at Orca, we see kind of two paths that are coexisting at the same time. The first is that companies that we work with have an understanding that they need to secure their infrastructure. So whether that's your applications, your cloud, that is, I think, table stakes. Then you start to think about, how do I secure agents? So when you think about the work that you're doing on a daily basis, I know I think about this as well. What are you doing with the agents? Where are they being deployed? What data they have access to? Is there a PII that's connected to it? What are you telling the agents to do? And what is the result of the connections that they're going after to feed information back to you? So that is the thing that when we talk to chief information security officers, security teams, that's what they're worried about. And that is probably the biggest thing that I think we're seeing, which is, and that customers are coming to us to help solve, is kind of this duality of like securing two paths.
So then let's say in the past, like 3 to 6 months, can you explain some of the things that you've been working on that you're really proud of the results?
Yeah. So I think for us, the thing that we see with companies is the ones that are the most successful are the ones that actually do have a decent handle on this duality, that they're securing their infrastructure, they're securing their agents, and at the same time, they're figuring out the path to remediation. So when you think about, I don't know, the work that you do, if I'm used to build, it used to take me days and weeks to build a PowerPoint. It was like the bane of my existence. Now I do it like, so fast, and the barrier to trying things is almost removed. It's like so liberating and incredible. And I think our customers are seeing the same thing, which is, how do I get to the path of remediation that's automated and cutting down time for solving issues that they see in their environment from days and weeks and months to like hours. So those are the ones that we're actually seeing the most success with, and the customers that, I'll give you an example. We work with a major hospitality chain, hotel chain, and our CEO tells a story about how, I think the guys in the room who are with me today can confirm this. They did a simulation of what happens if I build an AI agent where anybody in the world goes online, they book a hotel reservation. It took, like, when they went through the simulation, it took the whole system down, the whole reservation system down for 15 minutes, because they weren't actually figuring out the step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, down the line after they deploy this agent for reservation booking. So, I mean, it was a simulation, but it is an example of what happens if companies are not thinking AI first, and what happens down the line if we deploy this thing. And what it has access to. So, fortunately, again, it was a simulation, but in any event, it's a good example of what is possible when you're not thinking along the lines of kind of this duality.
So we'll move on to Mark, but I just wanted to say these guys kind of think for one another sometimes, so feel free to hop in as well. So it's interesting, again, hearing all these different perspectives. I'm assuming that you, from where you said, it's a lot about, hiring leaders and hiring in general and searching for the right people, which is that human element. So I'm gonna start with you, Mark. So what is something that you think, from where you said, companies are almost getting right, but not quite?
Yeah, almost getting right. I would say that many teams at specific companies could be getting this right, but I think holistically it doesn't really, hasn't really sunk in that interview processes need to be updated in order to survive the post-LLM era. Rachel, you just mentioned that the barrier to entry to trying anything is relatively low, or is so much lower than it has been before. Similarly, the advent of AI has really leveled the playing field in terms of applications or resumes that you're going to be seeing as a hiring manager. And if you don't change your interview as a hiring manager, or either the specific kind of technical or role fit interview, or the way that you're evaluating candidates to adjust for that, or at least with LLMs in mind, you are going to be stuck at the end of your hiring process with anywhere between 3 to 5 candidates and meh or like lukewarm feelings about whether or not the talented folks that you've been interviewing are actually the ones that are going to be able to help you solve the problem that you have. And After that, you're going based on gut feel, and that's not a great place to be as a hiring manager. So that's something that I would say that many folks are thinking about, but maybe haven't actually taken a look at their own processes and their own hiring processes and workflows to adjust them for what the candidate experience is today.
Because Claude wrote their resume for them, or maybe helped them prepare the.
Yeah, maybe in the past, you could read an application or see a resume, and you can, especially for external facing roles where I would say that kind of polish and professionalism is really important to present to a customer or a prospect. You can kind of tell, has this person done this job before? I have a sample of their writing here in the form of a cover letter. Is this something that I would feel comfortable going out to any one of my clients? Whereas now, I mean, it's all Claude all the way down. And so it's really hard to tell. It is easier to stand out, I would say, for a candidate, but you just get so many more apps that look so similar to each other. You really have to introspect as a hiring manager to figure out, are you actually able to hire the right person based on your hiring process?
So then doubling down on the interview process itself, could you share maybe a story or an example of somebody that did this right, and kind of like, what does that last round look like?
Sure. I'm going to use myself as an example.
Okay.
A lot of my interviewing process actually has not changed in the
Post-LLM era.
The way that I interview folks that are coming to join the customer success team is with a case study primarily. And the workflow has always been the same. You get the case study brief 24 hours before your interview. You can prepare. You come in. You should ask questions. You should lay out your thinking. And you get new information about the situation over the course of the case study workshop, right? So the playing field is still level. Everybody's got the same exact information. They prepare in the way that they want to. But I'm not actually testing to see if you arrive at the right answer. I'm testing to see if you can logically lay out your thinking, or if you've Googled how to pass a case study interview. It's kind of shocking how many people don't do that and then just do steps 1 through 5. Now that I definitely see a jump in, I guess, the level of preparedness of candidates, because they could just feed my case study into ChatGPT or Claude. But in this case, over preparation and getting way too railroaded into kind of a certain method of thinking may actually hurt the candidate, because as you learn new information, you have to kind of adjust on the fly, connect the dots between what you knew before and what you know now. And so that's something that really helps me continue to get at the qualities of people that I'm trying to hire, which is, are you a good communicator? Are you analytical? Are you pulling from your past experience? That's a huge win for any kind of case study interview. And so I've had to make some adjustments to the behavioral question kind of section of our interviews. But the case study has remained basically unchanged because it leveled the playing field before
AI leveled the playing field itself. And then the 24 hours is interesting because it's like you could try really hard to just fake it or memorize stuff, but it's just not enough time to fake.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely memorize stuff, but the point isn't that you memorized something about the brief, right? You come into the interview and you've got the piece of paper in front of you anyway. The point is, did you ask me questions about things you didn't know, or did you check your assumptions? The point is, are you connecting the dots when a new kind of not written down part of the case study comes to light? That's really the point. So over preparation can actually hurt. And now people are way more likely to, I guess, over prepare with the LLMs. And so they end up kind of being stuck in the actual interview itself. It's a good mimic for what real customer success work is actually like in this day and age.
I'd add to that, so now I'll jump in. Because what Mark is experiencing is consistent across every company and investor that we work with across both private equity and venture capital. So everybody's thinking about how to reinvent their interview process to put in these safeguards against, anyone can become a domain expert with given enough time on a certain subject matter, especially with outlay criteria. Right. So what we have seen is the introduction of information that was not known prior to. What we had seen is a lot more in-person live case study sessions happening across all levels of leadership. And then the other trend that we're seeing that makes some companies uncomfortable because you have to wrestle with the actual reality of your business and the outcomes you're after during the process, is getting candidates to sign an NDA. And remember, I'm at the leadership level here. Coming to the office, meeting with the deal team, meeting with the CEO, and hashing out a real problem that exists today and how you're going to solve for that. And the signals are more about their process in solving, their decision making. It's all those like intrinsic traits and qualities that really, well, you have to solve the problem, but that really deliver on, are we confident that this individual fits in our organization and is going to be able to drive the value that we want from them.
So you handle a lot of executive search. So would you say like C-suite?
Yeah, we go VP level and up. Okay. Yep. Okay. VP, C, and boards.
So I'm curious. I was going to say I imagine that it's changed a lot, but maybe some of it's changed, some of it has stayed the same. So what would you say are some of the big challenges from where you sit?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because everybody is dealing with the same problems. Again, across like the full spectrum of companies that we work with, both from like size and scale and stage, are all wrestling with the efficiency question. All right, like how can we take AI, give it to everybody in our organization, and maybe that function more efficient? Which you can screen for. Everyone's using tools, right? There's then these big tech shifts every 10 years or so. It's about how adaptable you are, how curious you are, how quick-footed you are in change. That is really like the outcome, right? How we measure the outcome. So what we look for is time to customer value, and that's across all functions. So just to give it as like an example, in terms of, we just did a chief technology officer search, then closed. This search took about 6 months, started in the, we need to drive better tool adoption across our engineering to make them more efficient. All right. And within the first 2 like qualified candidates that we had our client interview, we sat down and had one of those really tough conversations about what are you actually trying to solve for in getting a higher efficiency out of your engineering organization. And when you keep whittling that down, it ultimately goes to, we're trying to provide more value to our customers. And then you're going back into the candidate's background. How have you effectively done that in the past? What are hardcore examples of you being able to build processes and teams and strategies that have allowed you to deliver, X growth, X revenue, X impact?
So, and you may have already answered this. If you look back at, let's say, past 6 to 12 months, something that you guys have worked on where you feel like you found that secret sauce, or you got results that you're proud of.
I think it so varies by every company and every domain. And back to that, like, I guess what's changed, what hasn't. It's interesting. You have to like really understand your business and back to what you're trying to solve for. So I'll give you another example, I guess is how I'm answering the question. We did a VP of sales search for a native AI company called Sixfold AI. They work in the insurance market and they work with underwriters, right? So their technology solution is really exciting for underwriters, but also threatens their very existence because it automates the work they do. And they sell into a very specific market. It's a Series A company. So what they needed from a VP of sales is somebody that understands the nuance in selling a solution to a buyer that feels threatened, but also adds a lot of value to them. But the most important characteristic really had nothing to do with AI. Sixfold needs to capture more attention and revenue in the insurance market. So the individual that actually ended up landing the job had the strongest Rolodex and the strongest contact list inside the exact market of which they operated from. And then we prioritized everything down from there.
So when you have those existing relationships, the AI cannot read the room. We can build relationships.
It's back to like the judgment, right? And intrinsic qualities that we all have in traits that models can't pick up on when you need the human in the loop to be able to make those calls, right? You get shit in, you get shit out. Still true, kind of, no matter where you go. Yes.
All right, so we'll move on to round 2, which are our pre-submitted questions. And then, as I said, round 3 will be you guys. So get your questions ready to keep out. So some of these have names, some of them don't. The first one is for you.
Great.
And, well, actually, you may have actually... So the question was, when you're thinking about screening for an executive, and I both really kind of touched on this. I don't know if there was a different story, but when you're screening for an executive, what are some things that you are looking for today that you weren't looking for, they said 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think I hit that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything. It's so interesting, like from where we sit our kind of most important job is to understand what you're solving for. And that forces you to really think critically about your company. And oftentimes, as an exec search partner, as a service provider, all right, even though we're hiring for really important, crucial C-level roles, we don't get all of the information. We get loosey-goosey revenue numbers. We get loose retention numbers. We get some insight to the teams that they manage, but we don't spend a lot of time with those individuals. So I think when you're doing any of this work, whether it's evaluating services, tools, processes, people, you really just got to get down to that for question. Actually, no, it does not answer the question at hand, but that's what I have for y'all.
So we also have here, so this one says, it says shifting to AI native with human in the loop. And how do we convince, you can't answer this one because I know you're going to want to, somebody else here. Shifting to AI native with human in the loop, how do we convince senior leaders to come along versus their resistance? Who wants to?
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, this is the challenge. It's the ROI analysis, right? Like I said, most people want to aim for complete, automation, but really what you should aim for is that operational efficiency, right? Can you quantify it in terms of time saving? Right, that's pretty straightforward. But could you also just contract the same work in the Philippines to get the same time saving, right? So that's a decision you have to make. Does it even have to be AI? Does it have to be probabilistic? Could it be just a deterministic, software with a CRUD backend, right? Like that is a part of the conversation. There's also this idea of things that are almost impossible to measure before you deploy them and actually see the results. So for example, you build a system maybe for data entry and automates data entry. Now that employee is happier because they don't have to do these manual tasks, right? But what are they doing with that excess time, right? Are they watching Friends, or are they like finding some other, meaningful tasks?
Yeah.
So that analysis is extremely important. You can definitely convert it to dollars, right? And there's a way to do that. But there's these unforeseen factors that you just don't see until you actually launch it. And this is also why some of these projects get larger and larger and larger and more complex. And you want to make sure you are like gearing it back to what is the actual problem you're solving. Like there was this one example of a in-house project that we did where it started with signal tracking. For those who aren't familiar with signal tracking, it's basically looking at market signals, determining, where are the people we're going to outreach and what order. And I didn't have much oversight on it. I allowed them to work with an engineering team, no kind of AI product manager. And then I peer back in the project about 30, 40 days later, and they're basically building a CRM. So I'm like, okay, you already have a CRM. Like, what are we doing here? What was the actual problem that we started with? So, like, for you to generate an ROI, I would just always go back to the problem you're solving and try to do those calculations early. If not, like you have to measure post production and be very careful about how you're layering it, or else just kill the project, like altogether.
All right, so we'll do one more. This one I'm chomping at the bit to answer, but I will not answer because I want to hear somebody else. Maybe I'll jump in. But how has AI learning changed in the modern day?
Your titles, best review. No, I want to hear what other people else. Can you help us with that? AI learning means.
I'm guessing. Well, how is AI learning changed? I'm guessing staff training. How do we upskill employees in this new class?
I mean, I'll touch upon and you guys jumping. I'm sure I asked here. It's interesting because I do quite a bit of like shaping the work with Tyler. He's doing much less of the execution, but where we've seen, I'd say the bulk of the interest, 90% of our engagements go within Valere Learning, is not the on-demand course offering, is not the like virtual and in-person workshop, which have value. If you think about it, like kind of like Maslow's hierarchy needs, it's good foundation, and it helps in shifting folks from like a reactive to more of a proactive understanding of AI, what it can do, what it can't do, gets everyone to base camp. What I would say is what I've seen the biggest shift is particularly around what we call AI use case enablement. We deliver them through like boot camps, but you have to go into an organization. You don't have to deploy a new solution. You don't need to rework how they're doing things, but you need to understand what are the existing tools that they built off the shelf with. They're in bed with these SaaS companies for the next 3-4 years and have these licenses, they're not switching, right? And they're kind of be held to them. So how do we help both in use cases where you have, like, let's call it AI-enabled SaaS platforms, or a bit of a sticker, but the tool's there and they've been tasked to use it. But as it being used effectively, the solution is only as good as the people's ability is to use it effectively. And so that's how we think about many of our engagements. We're going to come in, understand the existing tools that you've already bought, you've already rolled out, you're telling your team to use it, but they don't know how to actually get the result and outcome that they are trying to achieve. The adoption's low, the retention's not there, and you're just using it effectively. So that's how we traditionally think about like AI learning from like a workforce training perspective is, let's not come in and tell you how to do things entirely differently with a different tech stack that's going to cost you 3x, 4x in an implementation. Let's go and look at how you're doing things today so that we can enable your team to do them better tomorrow.
I mean, let me just quickly add to that to talk about what we've done internally. And I'll start with an analogy, right? I'll peel it back. I have a 4-year-old getting ready for the summer. And, he's going to be going in a pool. I have to get him to swim. So I'm putting him in the pool and I'm saying, swim to me, right? Like, get to me. Can you get to me? He has to. You're going to sink or swim. This is exactly what we've done internally. We basically said, you have to start leveraging these tools. We're going to give you a few hours a week, right? Use these tools for your specific job function. Report back internally to the entire group. Let everyone see what you've been working on. Let's share ideas here. And that then creates a culture of learning where everyone is motivated. Everyone sees what other people are doing. Maybe they're not working on the same projects, but it's inspiring them to maybe look at these tools to see how these tools would actually help them. So again, it's just throw them in. Just let them get started. Give them the time. Give them the space. And, you'll see there are people within your organization that are more effective than others that actually then become leaders who other people follow and other people ask questions to.
It's like thinking about AI first as a team sport. Here you go. Yeah. To expand on that a little bit. So one of my favorite things that we've done for AI learning, and I want to be really clear that traditional learning still matters. You need your webinars and your workshops and all those course type learnings. That's not going to go away. But to Guy's point, and it's funny because Guy calls it the AI learning mandate. That was the name that he gave it. And I said, Guy, you have to soften that language a little bit. So I call it employee self-selected project, which means we don't care what you are learning how to build, but we want to build that employee agency where whatever their special interest is, right? So if this person is a graphic designer in marketing, they're going to want to play with the art and design tools, but your chief financial officer is going to want to play with something that crunches numbers all day, right? And vice versa. You don't want to give them tools that they don't care about. So he let everybody, and like he said, we are protecting 2 hours of your time, go forth and play around with it. But there was a requirement that you had to document. So save your prompts, show us an artifact. It doesn't even have to be good. It just show us what you built and what you're learning along the way. And we're now, about 8 weeks in, and we stop wording out.
Yeah, people are like recording their workflows, right? And sending screen records so they see that. And again, it's just very inspiring for other people, and it just creates more questions like, how did you do this? How did you find this? Hey, can you show me? And again, when Alex talks about a team sport, like it's a very good phrase to articulate this, because not a lot of people have that kind of autodidactic personality where they can go and kind of learn it by themselves, right? They do have to rely on other people, and other people have now stepped up within the company to help those other.
So that's just a little nugget that I would leave you guys if anybody hasn't tried it. It's such an easy initiative you can launch this tomorrow is these employee self-selected projects. Rachel, I know you guys probably haven't done it formally at Orca, but you were saying that you have something similar going on where you were doing your own learning.
Yeah, it's very similar to you guys. And one thing that has made a big difference in every meeting that you're in with our CEO, who's very accessible and approachable, he just says, ask me. Like, he's an engineer, like was in the Israeli army, like brilliant guy. You can sit with him and just say, hey, help me figure this out. How do I do it? There's no like shame to that game, just approaching him and saying like, help me figure this out. And he will sit with you and show you the art of what's possible. And it's very inspiring. And that has kind of permeated its way through our culture at Orca. I will also say that it can be a little bit chaotic too, because trying to sort of wrap your arms around like who is doing what. I saw somebody do this thing and create this artifact in Claude. How do I do that too? Where do I go? How do I get access to that skill or whatever? So it's been a little bit like kind of rough and tumble, like grassroots, but I would rather have it be that way than have it be like methodical and very structured, because I think this is all very structureless and it works.
Yeah, something. Love that story. So the leadership trait, one of the things that we're really after now that mattered less so maybe 12, 18 months ago, is if you're a second or third line manager in your organization, you better roll up those sleeves and become a player coach really, really quickly. Because you need to be in the trenches with your employees, figuring this stuff out, because there is no playbook. Especially for those of you that come from P-backed environments, like the AI playbook does not exist across any function. It's all being written right now. And the ones that are able to really inspire their employees, it is chaos. Yeah. But out of that chaos comes order. And the best leaders are those that are there figuring it out, not just dictating from the top down. Here's a bunch of tools. Show us what you got. Yeah. Like there's got to be some camaraderie around it. At least that's what we've seen, or be successful and not making a mishire in this moment at that level. Are those like characteristics? So I'm more sure like how your CEO is offering. Yeah, go.
It's being written right now and then rewritten 4 weeks later and rewritten again. One of the things that Guy and Alex just mentioned ties back to a lot of good customer success work is champion creation. There's going to be folks that really lean in to using these tools. And I think it's really important to empower them and kind of make it very clear that their efforts in messing around with these tools and learning stuff, documenting and posting it are fantastic, and we want more people to do this. And eventually, right, like you will filter down to everybody getting somewhat comfortable with these tools, but really going towards champions that might not even be managers, and most kind of classically won't be managers, but will be teammates on different teams, wanting to learn more about how to be most effective about what they're doing, because they care a lot about the quality of their work and their productivity, and so they want to get to that next level. Who better to help them get there than their peers?
Okay, so as you can see, our definition is still evolving here on AI at first, and so we're going to move into round 3, which is for you guys. So questions from the floor. Just don't be afraid to raise your hand. We'll start with this one over here.
Direct follow-up, maybe for all of you, but I'm super interested on when you find those champions, or as they're starting to be homegrown, how any of you have started, or if you're thinking about rewarding them, whether it is, a monthly reward, it's financial compensation, maybe it's promotions. Like, how are you starting to weave that into your evaluation? Certainly from a hiring perspective, but really more focused on the team you have.
I'll answer that. So there's a direct financial reward. So I talked about everyone reports to the group, and then you can see people who are like following up with others, commenting me with people. So I basically set up a financial incentive system where the quality, it's not about quantity. If I see quality posts, those are worth a certain amount of points. If I see kind of follow up to people scheduling meetings, those are points. And then the top 10 we take, I kind of just split a pool of money I pay out in bonuses. It's pretty straightforward.
Yearly, quarterly? How about
No,
yearly?
monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah. I'll add a little more structure to that. I mean, we did build a system with HR at the top with this in mind. So it's not something that's just like arbitrarily kind of out there, right? Like our head of HR is the one that essentially oversees across all of our platforms, including one that we've even built in-house and are fortunate enough to launch today. But again, it's that nature of treating AI first, AI transformation as a team sport. And so seeing organization-wide, like who's really stepping up, going above and beyond, clearly like putting in more than the 2 hours really as an extracurricular, not at the expense of kind of the rest of their work week. That we want to encourage that. And we've instilled that all the way through like our own purpose and values that we, up until this point, right, we've had quarterly Living Our Values awards that folks that we see on a day-to-day, it's peer nominated, peer submitted. These are folks that get called out in our quarterly all hands, and it's financially incentivized because we want to make sure people know that we appreciate it and also recognize it.
That's a great question by Beth. Anybody else?
This question is really for Guy, Alex, and Rachel, and it's around you have a client who's got problem they're solving, they have an ROI case for it, and now you're looking to help them build a solution. What about this security component? Because you could wind up with a larger attack surface in some cases than how something's built. Particularly if the client doesn't have a good AI governance structure to them. How do you make sure security is part of the solution?
I'd say on our end, we have a really good security provider. We're fortunate enough to work with Orca Security for that. No, let's take this one. It's all
This is something that we're hearing every single day from every CISO and every security team that we work with. So there's like this rewiring that is happening now. I mentioned it before around the attack surface. So it's no longer just through applications, it's through your cloud. It's like AI almost against your cloud. I think it's really important for CISOs to have a good ROI like case study in their mind about how do I know that applies for all of us. How do I know I've been successful? So, for example, reducing the mean time to remediation could be one ROI case study. So before Orca was deployed, it was taking me days or weeks to fix a security flaw. Now, with not a product kit, but I'm just using it as an example. With Orca, you can consolidate all your alerts. They're color-coded. It shows you this. There's a scoring mechanism. So let me address the 9.7s before I address the 6.3s. You have to have that level of specificity and granularity so that you can make like rapid decisions, because that's where the biggest gap is going to continue to occur if a CISO doesn't have a good answer for how to close the gap. So you close the gap. If you don't close the gap, I should say, that's where breaches happen. So it's like this compression of like before and after. I have to keep pace with all of the attack surfaces. As you said, they expanded, and have an ROI in mind of where I came from and where I'm going to. We just hear this over and over and over again.
I want to delegate actually this question to get a perspective from this guy in the back. Logan. Yeah.
My perspective on this is, as it relates to security and artificial intelligence, we see the rate of people going and attacking platforms just taking off. And I think if you're not thinking about your governance strategy with security at the forefront, you're missing a full opportunity and you're sort of putting yourself on the back foot. The rate of damage that can be done because of AI that is attacking you rather than being done in a correct way and in a positive way, I think you have your public guardrails in place ahead of time. You're in a really good position to make sure that you are keeping any issues contained within a controlled area. Using a lot of issues where agency go roles and or you have different copy groups utilizing large language models and or other AI hacking techniques and just setting out into the wilderness. So definitely having a security first mindset, although nobody likes to allocate that budget. Trust me, it is a lot easier to be proactive than reactive, both in time to remediation and in overall cost.
Can I just add one more thing to this, which is another thing that we're seeing oftentimes with security teams is that they are perceived as sort of the break for we're going to stop you. We need to be very slow, methodical, and think through this and the complexity. The more and more folks I talk to, the more they're saying, well, we don't want to be seen as the break. We want to be seen as the enabler in security and security first. And we want to let you do what you want to do, which is connect your Google to your FOD and have it read your calendar and your Gmail and be your, all those things. But at the same time, we want to be more of like an airbag or a seatbelt rather than a brake. And so it's the CISOs and the security teams who have that mindset, I think, that actually end up going faster and being true, like almost heroes in the equation. They're thinking about governance and they're thinking about frameworks, but they're also enabling their teams rather than slowing it down.
Yeah, so when you're looking at like AI uses, both from like when you're sourcing candidates or internally, What are the common pitfalls or red flags that you're seeing candidates or your own employees kind of falling to trap with an AI? I see how they kind of be like a snowball, or that can be really good or really bad. Are there any like, common denominators that, I can avoid myself, or if I see someone else doing, I could maybe try to nudge them in the right direction? Or
I'll try to be brief with this. We have a generative AI policy across our entire firm because I think, like many others, individually as well as organizations, it's so easy just to pile it on and make this amalgamation, as I like to say, like a Jenga tower, right? Whether you're in Claude Code, Claude Design, or like writing an email, right? You get to a point where if you don't maintain ownership and really like that human in the loop element and ownership, as I mentioned, you kind of lose yourself in it. You don't really understand really what the end product that you produce is, and you don't really know how much amount of fluff is in there. We get this a lot where, wish I could pick Logan again, but he's tucked away in the back. The word of 2026 we used to say has been code janitor, right? Because we get so many projects, people are like, check out this prototype that I built, and it's like they don't even understand what at the end of the day they built with Claude Code. Their discovery documentation is just riddled with contradictions, never mind security flaws, and we have to say the Jenga tower has its place. I can visualize what you're trying to do, but it's not built with scale in mind. And so we challenge folks, including our own partners, including ourselves, all the way through our generative AI policy. You have to know it like you own it. And then we have to think about this a different way in terms of structuring it, like building it with Legos rather than a Jenga tower.
I would add, I think this applies to like any level of role or opportunity you have in front of you. And I say this all the time to candidates. When you're being interviewed by a retained recruiter or you're applying for a job, all right, like I really don't care what you were responsible for. All right, like if you're a manager, I'm going to make a pretty blanket assumption that you've been managing people or managing some part of that business. What I care about is the impact that you made in that role and how you did it. And if you can't get into the details and be very concise and educated on how you did that or the part that you played, right? Because we all know not one of us is a superhuman and makes everything happen, how you worked cross-functionally to get that happen or get that done. If you can't articulate that in a concise way, you're setting yourself up for failure down the line. The other thing I would tell people, and I say this all the time, and not to give a career class, but we all do amazing things every day, and no one documents it. So like every month, every week, every couple weeks, just like open a Google sheet, and write the shit down that you accomplished that week and how you did it. Because when you try to go back and you're making those career jumps, it's really hard to think about, okay, how much change has happened in the past 4, 5, 6 years and what I actually accomplished during that time.
Shoot, they so fast moved. Yeah. I'll add to that. It's only recently we've kind of been interviewing candidates and virtual interviews where it feels like they're reading off of, ChatGPT or something. So they're kind of answering the question. And I phone screen all of the candidates before I bring them in for any kind of virtual or in-person interviews. And I like their enthusiasm. I like their experience, and they're comfortable talking, and then they feel this need to be super rigid and structured, and so they end up again railroading themselves into this specific process of I have to use ChatGPT because everybody else is using it. You should be confident in your skills, should be confident in what you've achieved. As Matt's saying, you should be able to speak to these things. It's not a knock that you aren't using LLMs for every single point of your kind of candidacy for when you're trying to get hired. I would much rather you be personable and intentional with your communication versus, feeling like you really got to get it right every single time.
Okay, maybe I can also answer it like this. Like, I think because it's so easy to create net new products today, you really want to consider like what is your actual moat going to be before you get into it, knowing that if it works, you're going to get a lot of copycats real quick. And it doesn't even have to be a technical moat or a product. You can think about it as like, maybe I have this relationship, this distribution partner, this really good go-to-market strategy, or hey, I built this tool that's going to help me with go-to-market. So they're thinking about kind of the business holistically and not just the product, because in 2026, if it's working, you're going to get plenty of copycats to really quickly.
It's 20% product, 80% execution. And
I would say nobody really knows what they're doing, right? Like we all have experiences that make us more capable in the jobs that we have in front of us. But whether you're in the boardroom or an entry-level employee, everyone's just trying to figure it out every single day. And so if you can like surround yourself with people that like have that humility, get in the trenches with you and like build alongside with you, keep them close because it really matters.
Great advice. All right, so what we'll do next is for any additional questions, we will just open it up to mingling. If there are refreshments in the back, and so our panelists will stick around. You guys can walk around and network. Was there anything else, Alex, that you wanted to close out with? Anything logistics-wise?
Nothing logistics-wise. Take swag bag. It's just our way of saying thank you guys for making the time. We also will have ongoing in the back. We have demos both from Valere as well as Orca Security. So drop on in. We'll show you something cool if you want to learn a little bit more or see something in action. But again, thank you for everyone for taking time out of your TechWeek.